Welcome you to the first of our veterinary CPD events from the faculty. The Faculty of Homeopathy, as many of you members will know, but for those that don't, it was founded in 1844, which interestingly is the same year as the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. It was incorporated by Act of Parliament in 1950. To regulate education, training and practice in the medical profession of homeopathy. And since then, we've accumulated a longer list of statutory regulated professionals, which includes vets now. Anyone with a registrable qualification, registrable with the Royal College, is entitled to join. And we have two levels of qualification, which you can pursue: the foundation qualification, the licentiate, and the veterinary membership, for which you need to follow at least 3-year accredited course, and then take some examinations. At the moment, we've got the one accredited course running at the National Centre for Integrated Medicine in Bristol. Our patron is His Royal Highness Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, and there are various advantages of being a member of the faculty. One of which, for me personally, is that we publish the Homeopathy Journal, which is the only peer-reviewed journal in the world dedicated to homeopathy. So this is the first of the veterinary sessions that we have planned. This program of CPD events started last autumn with a seminar by Jonathan Hardy, which was very well attended. But I'm very pleased to be presenting to you a purely veterinary session, and very happy that Edward De Beukelaer has accepted the invitation to share with you today. I'd also like to thank at this point our sponsors for this event, Ainsworth's Homeopathic Pharmacy. There's a long relationship with the veterinary profession and Ainsworth's Pharmacy, which goes right back to one of our old founding members of the BAHVS was George MacLeod, and one of the first faculty veterinary members. George was a very good friend of John Ainsworth's, who actually founded the pharmacy. So we have a long relationship, and very grateful for their help. Some of you may know Edward already. I've been party to his CV as part of our organisation of this, and I know Edward even better than I did before, so I'm just going to share that with you, because I always find it interesting how people came to homeopathy and what their experience was before. So Edward graduated from the Flemish-speaking Ghent University, or Ghent, I imagine it's pronounced, in Belgium, in 1986. And then he worked in mixed practice in Wales for a couple of years. Then he moved to France, where he was partner in a mixed practice, and returned to the UK in 2001. Initially worked in mixed practice, and then finally settled into small animal practice. And he now owns a 2-vet small animal practice in Marlborough in the UK. In 2007, he translated the work of Bruno Guibudo, a system called Obsolim. He translated it from French to English, and we'll come to more of that later on. But Obsolim is an observation technique in cattle that allows you to know exactly what's happening in the rumen of cattle, sheep and goats. And Edward's involved in the training and distribution in the UK of this technique. It's fascinating, actually. I've looked over Edward's shoulder sometimes at the cards that are involved in the system, and it's something I'd like to know more about, actually, and it's quite intriguing. We all come to homeopathy usually, I think, from the same sense as Edward did, which is curiosity and a sense of lack of treatment possibilities for recurrent conditions. And for that reason, Edward started learning homeopathy in Paris in 1992. He joined a homeopathy school in Belgium, headed by Marc Brunson. And he uses this system called Souchism, which refers to the source material. And Edward's going to tell you more about that. It's a fascinating system. For several years, he ran a homeopathy group around Bristol. And in 2008, he wrote a book called Homeopathy, What to Expect. That's a fascinating little book, and I would recommend it to anyone who's interested in veterinary homeopathy. There's 100 cases in there, and it's a fascinating book to read. Edward tells me it's available on Amazon, if anyone would like to look at it, and I strongly recommend it. In 2013, Edward, being a multilingual member of the IAVH, we persuaded him, or he took on the role of translating the homeopathic Veterinary Medica, Materia Medica, which was written in French and had been donated to the IAVH, and Edward is slowly working through it, translating it into English. And that's all available via the International Association of Veterinary Homeopathy. He became president of the IAVH in 2015, so he's now senior vice president, and he seems to have an unending energy for promoting homeopathy on the political side. He works with the ECH, the European Committee for Homeopathy. He works with Eurocam, the European Organization for CAM, Integrated Medicine. And he was invited by the Indian Ministry of Ayush, which is their government department of alternative therapies, to take part in a forum in Goa in 2018, building links between the IAVH and Indian veterinary surgeons. He's also attended the World Veterinary Association board meetings in Barcelona and Costa Rica. So I'm personally very grateful to Edward for all the work he does promoting veterinary homeopathy. So now you know who our speaker is, I'm going to hand over to Edward to present his cases. And I'd just like to say that everyone will be muted, of course. That's so we don't get background noise. If you want to ask a question, then you can unmute yourself. And if you just raise your hand, and I'll hopefully notice you, and you can pass on your question to Edward. He's happy to take questions at any time during this presentation, so please feel free to ask any questions you want to. So I don't think there's anything else I need to say. Just say thank you to Ali, who is our communications officer, who's holding the strings for this, and it's a lot of her hard work has gone into producing this presentation. So over to you, Edward.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Long introduction, and yeah, thanks for organizing this and allowing me to push forward some of my ideas, and definitely my push for what's at the bottom of the slide, promoting and supporting the highest standards of practice and education and research in homeopathy. That's definitely going to be an underlying theme, which I'm going to come back to in this meeting. So the remedy we're going to study today is Ferrum phosphoricum, and as Peter explained, I'm going to explain you how I used Sushism, which is a an idea from Marc Brunson, how he uses this method to study remedies, something everybody can do, and hopefully by the end of the meeting you'll start doing tomorrow. So Ferrum phosphoricum, strength, communication, and weakness is sort of the subtitle. So I'll start by presenting a few cases of Ferrum phosphoricum, so 3 cases of myself plus 2 human cases as well. And then I propose a study of this medicine using the Sushism techniques. So Sushism, that's how you write it. Because I think, Peter, I think you actually created this word, didn't you? Or did I create it? I don't know, actually, no. But I think you created it. So there we are. We give Peter the credit for this word. And then I'll finish after, because we'll have a tea break after these first 2 bits, and then we'll finish with a chapter on where I explain Sushism in a little bit more detail, and then put all what I've been talking about today in my thinking, my approach, my ideas about homeopathy today. So we start with the first case, which is a case of another bite. It might have been published before somewhere, I can't remember, that's possible. Now, what's really interesting about this case is it happened about 5 years ago or something like that, I can't remember. And I had just a new member just joined the practice, a lady of, well, I think she's 10 or 15 years younger than I am, quite a very good conventional vet, very interesting, good, excellent conventional vet, good communicator. And she was very politely dismissive of homeopathy, very polite to say, oh, you practice homeopathy? Ah, that's fine. So now this dog comes in, and this bitch comes in on a summer day, walking almost on her knees, you know, she's really in a state with a big swollen lip and a swollen face, temperature 40.5 degrees. And I treat this case using homeopathy only, nothing else. And that she witnessed this case, and since then she's convinced homeopathy works. So it is a really important case from that point of view as well. So so this 8-year-old Marmot bitch, she's in season at the time, but I don't think that has anything to do with the case, but it's just one of the facts. So she comes in, she almost stumbles in the waiting room. She can't stand very well. Her face is swollen, her lip is swollen. She's been bitten here, and you can see the marks. And she has an erratic heartbeat. She's not very well at all. She's a bit staggering. And we take her in the back, and I start just on the swelling, on the acuteness. I start using APIS 200 every 15 minutes. And within the hour, she stabilizes and say, okay, I don't have to worry. I don't have to put her on a drip or anything else. I don't have to do anything else. We can do this with homeopathy. So within the hour, we could see that was going to work. But then the APIS 200 didn't seem to make any progress anymore. And I remained with this big swelling here. Some of the swelling of the face had gone down, but the swelling had sort of moved downwards a little bit. And then the lip became more painful and a bit more purple. And so something I do now more and more, instead of going up in dilution, I go down in dilution, because it tends to work better on the clinical cases. And actually, nowadays, I probably would have gone to an APIS 6C instead of 30C, but that's what I did at the time. And again, a dose every 15 minutes, and in the next few hours, she improves again, and she can walk properly again. She'll drink a little bit. She'll have a few treats. She can walk out in the garden, the practice. But then it sort of stops, and she remains still with this big lip, which is purple on the inside, a little bit painful, and the swelling is sort of collected here in a bizarre way. And we'd seen that the APIS wasn't doing very much anymore, so I needed to change the remedy. And I did find a rubric which says throat swelling as if a goiter. So it really looks like that, because this swelling was really sat here on the lip and up there. And the one remedy that's in there is a Vipera. So, well, didn't buy another Vipera in this. That's good. That's going to be fantastic. One dose, 200, and I'll send her home in the evening. There's no reason for her to stay in the practice, and we'll see her tomorrow morning. She comes back the next day, the Vipera has done nothing, zero, zilts. And she's still a bit subdued. She hadn't really eaten at home. The gums are still very purple. She still has this big swelling up here. Not much change. The heart is still a bit erratic. You get a normal heartbeat, and then suddenly you get a erratic heartbeat. It sort of varies between these two. And so while I'm listening and looking at the dog and trying to work out what to do, I ask for some more information and said, well, I need to figure out how this other bite presents itself. What's the disease that's happening on the moment with this other bite? Now, asking, so I asked the owner, how is she today compared to how she is normal? Now, it's quite interesting. The owner replies by giving how she's in general, and that's obviously important. And she tells something to me like she's tend to be calm in the house and really energetic on walks. That's not bizarre for why I'm around a bitch. And then she also says that the appetite varies between good eating and eating very little. It's every 1-2 days, it changes between the two. And at the same time, she gets pale gums. When she doesn't eat, her gums go pale, but it doesn't affect her energy at all. When she goes out on the walks, she's fine, she's full of energy. It doesn't affect her, but this varies all the time, backwards and forwards. And as I said, I had at the same time on the auscultation and listening to the heartbeat is normal. And then a few seconds later, it becomes erratic and then it goes normal again.
Yeah.
So I make a repetition, which is at the time is the one at the top. So pulse irregular, face swelling edematous, which happened initially, was still a little bit there, and mouth discoloration gums. I don't know why I've made that repetition, because there's a second one, which I probably did at the same time, using completely different rubrics. The other one is face discoloration, red alternating with paleness, what the owner had told me. And then the mouth discoloration bluish, the gums were still blue, and then this goiter, which is still present. And I must say exactly why I have two representations, I can't remember. But what's interesting, they both give ferrum phosphorus as a possibility amongst quite big remedies. And I had in the back of my mind a memory of alternating symptoms in ferrum phosphoricum. And because the other remedies the other medicines didn't really inspire me for this case, I just prescribed ferrum phosphoricum. So this surprise appearance of this medicine in amongst the big polycrest, and also the fact that the owner gave me a chronic picture when I asked actually for an acute picture, so I mixed it all together. So she gets 3 doses of the ferrum phosphoricum 12C that day, and the next day the goiter is going down, and she's much better. She's eaten again. She's all the symptoms are disappearing. There's still something left which isn't completely right, so I finished that off with four doses of ferrum phosphoricum 200 twice a day for 2 days, and she's completely right. There's nothing left of the other bite. There's no sloughing. Everything is healed perfectly, and she's perfectly fine. So as I said, that the evolution of this case convinced my very dismissive colleague, who now uses homeopathy for her children. So she lives on the feedback after that she lives for another 4 years, is seen once for an ear problem, which is quite interesting, by another of my colleagues who's very conventional. She has some eardrops for that. And then I put her to sleep 4 years later. And what's quite interesting, they never consulted us with this bitch anymore. And now these are regular clients. They will consult when they're worried. They don't come willy-nilly to the practice. They won't hesitate to come if it's necessary. But if the dogs are fine and just getting old, they won't necessarily come. And when I go and put this dog to sleep at home, she's really gone right till the end, right till the last drop. So this dog has kept going and going and going. And I think that is part of this medicine. So that's my first case. And this first case is the one that made me look into ferrum phosphoricum a little bit more than what I knew. I started the study, which I'm going to present today. I started it after that case, and that allowed me to present the medicine for Poppy. That allowed me to prescribe ferrum phosphoricum for Poppy. And Poppy, she's a Rottweiler. She's about 10 years old when I do a first homeopathic consultation, and she's spayed, she's rescued Labrador, Rottweiler. And she enjoys a number of quite serious problems. She has stifle issues. She's a Rottweiler. Her knees are straight up and her stifles are thick like this and painful. Carpals, you can't fold them very much. They're painful. The metacarpals are swollen up, and she's got these typical sort of bent knees, and she struggles along with this. And then she has these lick granulomas like many dogs have here, but they're not tiny, they're huge, and they come up and go, and sometimes they've got huge ulcers in them, and sometimes they look much nicer, and they're just there. She doesn't suffer with them, but they're really horrible. And the thing is, she can't tolerate any non-steroidal treatment, non-steroidal painkillers. She'll just vomit straight away and stop eating. She can't take them at all. And we keep her going with by prescribing physio. We have some good physio people around here who do a fantastic job. We did some laser on the, which did work quite well for the pain relief on the stifles and the toes. It's actually quite good for that, the laser. She was filled up with glucosamine, had monthly, 3 weekly injections of cartrophen, and that's fine for her to keep going. And we keep her going for quite a few years then, until the day of the homeopathic visit when she's about 10 years old. I'll get called. We haven't seen her for a few weeks then. We haven't come for their regular laser treatments and everything, and they, I think they probably noticed that the dog's coming to the end. She can't walk anymore. The lady calls me, can you come and have a look at Poppy, because Poppy's can't get up. We have to take her out to the garden every day. She can't get up anymore, and then we have to carry her back in, and we think we might have to put her to sleep. Can you come and have a look? And the grave was dug when I arrived, so it was it was serious. And she said, yeah, I can't bring the dog in anymore because we can't get her in the car. She doesn't want to be put in the car, and she's too heavy for me, and all these it was complicated. And they're really nice people. They're quite old-fashioned people, but they're very nice. They're very good to their dogs. So I arrive in the kitchen, and in front of the Argo in a big bed is Poppy. And she lies there with a big smile, wagging her tail. She can't get up. She tries, but there's no chance she can get up. Her hind legs have given away completely, and the front legs aren't very strong at all. And she seems still to have lots of energy, this dog. She doesn't look like she's a dying dog. The dog's come to the end, but she can't get up. So what do we do? And I have this really interesting contrast of the front end, which still has a shiny coat and all this happiness. And then halfway through, the coat goes to this dusty, old, sick, dusty gray coat. So and all the muscles gone, also the weakness. So it's funny because it's almost like two pieces of a dog stuck together there. So really big contrast front and back end. And I just, there was just something about this dog. I said, well, I have to try and at least convince the owner to see, can I do something with homeopathy? Can I get this dog back on its legs? And he says, yeah, she's quite happy to give this dog one last chance, because they are really, they can't see, there's nothing they can think they can do for this dog, but obviously it's not ready to pass to the other world. So I ask her, who is Poppy? And then that's the things they answer me. She's rescued, she's no trouble, and she tends to, she used, well, when she could, she tended to follow Mrs. the lady around the house. And she says she's her own boss, she's very attached to us. I just tend in my presentations to just give you the words, the phrases, in the order the owner give them to me, and I try to take the ones which are the most important one and just read them out to you, because it's not my interpretation of the case. Hopefully I'm giving you the case how it was presented to me. So that's, I'm just going to read what they told me. So she's very attached, she's always watching me, and when we grab her by the collar, she grumbles. The terrier is the boss, so they have a small terrier and they have a Labrador as well, and the little terrier is the boss. And Poppy allows the terrier to take her food, and she's not worried about her food. She's very gentle, she says. She runs off on walks, so when they go for a walk, when she could still run, so she'll run off, and I have to go and get her. And when I grab her by the collar, she grumbles. So this really nice dog here will actually grumble, and it's quite interesting. In the surgery, this dog comes in and she's still wagging. She looks very nice, but when you start doing something, you feel, she just might bite, but she won't. So in one way, you feel confident she won't bite you, but the other end, you can feel there is something really tough about her. Well, if you overstep the mark, she will bloody tell you, and I use bloody on purpose here. So that's definitely the sensation of this dog in the consultation. So the other thing she says, when they come home and they're in the car, she wants to be first out of the car. She wants to be the first one in the house, but the terrier gets around her. Obviously, poor Poppy, she's a bit handicapped. She's always been handicapped as long as I've known Poppy. And the little terrier gets around her, and eventually Poppy gives up trying to be the first. She says she controls the Labrador, so there's a young Labrador in the house. The Labrador is a very easy, submissive dog, so it's not complicated to control the Labrador. But she says it's not a game; she's serious about it. So it's all done in a serious way. And when Mrs. the owner, she was away for a while, she was a little despondent at that time, so she missed her own a little bit. When the visitors come in, she goes for cuddle, and that's it. She's not over the top. She goes and says hello, and then she goes to her own bed to do something else. She was easy to educate, and she eats paper, Kindle, tissue, stick, but she will not give these things up. She's very stubborn. And that's so in essence, the consultation, which I think lasts about 20 minutes or something like that. And I just, Ferrum just popped up in my mind, because I was actually working on the medicine at that time, and they said this contrast, this friendliness, this strongness, this determination, and then the giving it at the same time. I just prescribed the medicine in LM3 daily, and the next day she gets up, just one dose. So the next day she gets up and she started being able to put around in the garden again. So she gets up every day, she does a little walk, and she goes back. She spends a lot of time in her bed, but she's mobile again, and it will last for 2 months with the Ferrum phosphoricum LM3 every day, just one dose, and no other treatment. So there's no more laser, there's no more cartrophin. That's the only thing she's taking, and the owner's obviously very happy. And then 2 months later, the leak granulomas suddenly get really worse, awful. They get really terrible again, and then I stray off and prescribe anthracene. It doesn't work. Actually, she gets worse. The lameness gets worse. So that was a big mistake of me. And I just go back to the Ferrum phosphoricum LM3, which used to work before, and she picks up again. But then 2 weeks later, this time it's not doing as well as before, and the owner comes in the surgery and say, we want to give her some pain relief. And if people want to do that, I don't argue with them. I rather they take conventional medicine or steroids or whatever. The most important bit for me is that the patient is better, even if I don't do perfect homeopathy. That's not what counts for me. It's doing what's best at the time, considering the situations. And she's giving meloxicam or metacam or something like that, and this time she can tolerate it, and she does really well. She gets more energy again. She can walk much better. She can go for little walks again, and she lives another 3 more months. When then she goes downhill, and we don't push the homeopathy any further, because the owner doesn't ask for this. They're not particularly interested. They're so happy with what happened, and then Poppy is put to sleep at that time. So this is case number 3, and this time we have a young Labrador, a female Labrador. She's 5 months old, and they come to the surgery because she got pain in her elbows, and she's really sore. She has this typical elbow out 2 instant, and when you open the elbows, it's really painful. She doesn't like that at all. We make some X-rays, and I compared these X-rays to the book we have, and actually these growth plates should have been much more closed at 5 months than they are on what we can see. And so there's probably some immaturity. And the other thing is this dog is nuts. It's overactive. It just races around everywhere. It never stops. And probably that combined with the slowness of this closing of the growth plate, we have growing pains. We have really sore elbows. So obviously prescribed rests, and they do put her in a cage, and they do rest her, and she's better. But a month later, it's still quite painful. It's still there's still a problem there. So and it took me a few weeks, but I finally convinced these owners to actually do a homeopathic appointment. Say I should be able to help her. I can put your dog on painkillers, but then we're just hiding. We're not actually fixing the thing. And shall we try and find a good remedy for her? And they eventually they say, oh yes, okay, let's go. So what did they tell me about? So now they start by saying she's slight head shy, and indeed, if you want to touch this dog's head, she flinches almost a little bit, like she's a little bit worried. But what they say, it's almost like she wants you to chase her. That's their explanation. That's their observation of it. And I think it's really important when you see these things. When I see things happening in the consultation room, I always ask people, "What's your impression? What do you think is happening there?" I don't make an interpretation myself. I try and find out from the owner, and they say it's almost like she wants to chase her. Okay. So they say she's very fast. So she steals food. If you move too fast, she jumps back. She gets excited. She wants attention. And she jumps up from excitement when the lead comes out, all four legs off the ground. She's too boisterous with the grandchildren and too nippy. So they're a bit worried about the grandchildren with this dog. They just keep them apart a bit. And on the lead with the grandchildren, she's not too bad. So when the grandchildren go and walk on the lead, she's not too bad. But we never left her on her own with our grandchildren. Now, this dog, to examine, it's almost impossible. It's one of these dogs that's all over you, and it takes you a few minutes before you can actually handle her properly. And it's just sheer energy and excitement. So she leaps up to other dogs. She's very enthusiastic. That is really the dog who she is. And she's taking guarding of the house quite seriously. She's 6 months at that time. Okay, so that's when she's explaining this. She's 6 months. And she thinks this is her role. She goes out barking. It is not aggressive. Something new in the garden freaks her out. She needs to find out and will settle. She's not scared. She's just not sure. And then she settles in the consultation room. But as soon as the noise on the other side of the door, she's up again to find out. She plays nicely with another dog. She's very bright. She gets overexcited like a child when tired. She goes round and round and round in the house and dives under the chairs. Again, this excitement, this energy, never stopping. And this happens once a day. She gets beside herself. We put her in the cage and then she settles. If we would take her out, she will go round and round again. So they have to actually put her in the cage for her to settle. And the overexcitement is a real issue, as I said earlier. After eating, she gets very energized. She follows around, looking what are we doing. She's scratching at the consult room door because of a noise on the other side. She goes between curious and restless. She takes things out of my pockets. And normally she's quite obedient, but when she gets frenetic, you lose her. And we did want an energetic dog for going on long walks, but this is a bit too much, they say. And in the garden, she'll dig for hours, which is obviously very good for these sensitive front legs. And she comes to us when we tell her to back down. She's challenging us. So there is a little bit of a strong-headed mindedness there. She's challenging. I get the feeling that if I would challenge her, she would not stand down. She never allows us to put her on her back as a pup. So it's this technique of putting puppies on her back to test them. They have tried this technique and she never allowed this. She has a good opinion of herself. She can stay on her own fine at home. She was confident as soon as we brought her home, right from the first night she slept on her own without whining. She was bright, learned quickly, and she was clean straight away. If she would be physically stronger, we could start training her. Initially, we thought we would not be able to cope with her. If we don't watch her, she's up to mischief. She will be on the table, she'll be bite and chew everything. She gets something and then something else. It's always this excitement, this high energy. She loves sitting in the back of the car with the boot open. It is mental variation for her. We sometimes struggle to get her out of the car. She wants to look where she's going. So she decides. So if she decides to sit in the back of the car, with a lot of Labradors love doing that, sitting in the back of the car with the boot open. She doesn't even want to come out of the car. She's 6 months old, remember? This is not an adult dog. So she's fine going in the crate at night to sleep and waits in the morning for us to let her out of the crates. She does not create in relation to being a crate. She's accepted that, that's fine, it's not a problem. She's always chewing stones. She seeks them out. She digs and looks for concrete and breaks it all up. It's quite a dog. The easiest way to calm her is to allow her to be on our bed or the settee. So when they give her a bit of leeway, that calms her. We did not want this initially because she goes, here I am, I got it. I managed to make it on the bed, or I managed to make it on the settee. She's quite canny, she's training us. If you want to walk away from her, she comes and nips you. She's happy with lots of praise. She has never been aggressive. See, see these sort of contradictions, and I think it's quite typical for this medicine, actually, these contradictions within Ferrum. She learns quickly when we take the time to train her. We realized that putting her in the crate, we gave her the, and that's really important here, we realized that by putting her in the crate, we gave her the permission to rest. She will only fully rest when she's in her crate. She will be zoned then. When we are still, she can be still. You can see the fight within her. And it is that observation that took me to the Ferrum, which by that time I started to understand a little bit. So you can see the fight within her between this wanting to do this and being allowed to rest. I did some repertorizations. Nothing inspired me, so I'm not going to give them to you because they were probably not very good, or they didn't bring up anything that I found interesting in the case. So, but this thing about, you can see the fight within her, this high energy, they wanted to do things, and then the weakness of the body, this growing plates that didn't close and caused pain. They really illustrated for me the opposing forces within Ferrum. So she gets the NLM6 for 2 weeks daily. And within 2 weeks, she's much less crazy. She's much settled, and she's not limping anymore. She's much better. And she was still rested at that time. I said, well, we'll test the remedy, bring her back in exercise. And while we bring her back in exercise, we'll give her the remedy, the medicine, 2 more weeks daily. And she comes completely right, no problems anymore. She'll come in season when she's about 8 months, so we treat 3 months further. That's not a problem. She's fine, and she's also much less scatty to be examined. She's still high energy, and she's still the dog they want to go on long walks with. But she's a bit easier to handle. She's better. And by that time, they're going walking for hours. So she's 8 months, and they walk her for hours. And then when she's 10 months old, she gets lame again, and they come and see me. I give her 1 dose of the Ferrum Phos 30, and the next day she said she was really off the next day. She was like really tired. And then the day after, the lameness was gone, and she's now 17 months. I saw her a week ago. She's perfectly fine. I really yanked on her elbows to see whether they're painful. She doesn't respond. She doesn't even remember there was a pain, because you get that sometimes with these Labradors. When you palpated their elbows and they were painful, they will forever hate their elbows being palpated. She's fine. She doesn't. She has no problems there anymore. So that was case 2. Case 3 for me. To study homeopathic medicine, it's best not to rely just on your own cases. You try and find some other cases that have been published, and I haven't found many. I only found 2 other human cases in the literature, and I'll present them here to you as well, just to give some other aspects of Ferrum Phos for you to try and sink into this medicine. And this one is from Sunil Anand. I don't know where it was published, but I found it in the information I have on one of my programs. And it's a 9-year-old boy who's suffering repeated episodes of tonsillitis, diarrhea, and headaches, and he vomits with the fever, and he's worse from having a haircut, so when he gets cold. He's reserved, he does not talk about his life, he's very conscious about his body, and he got bullied in his new school. He did fight with the other children, and then he came home with his clothes damaged, but he told his mum that he had fallen and that he has a good time at school because he doesn't want to upset his mum. And he's also quite a proud young chap. And when he has dreams, he's about somebody hitting his brother, and he will defend his brother. But he also dreams about ghosts. It's fearful, dinosaurs, killing somebody, war, and that he urinates in his bed, and he's worried that his mum might hit him. And also that he cries when a cat or a dog dies. He's strong-minded at school. When it's raining at school, he will be standing outside watching the rain. He would only come in the class when the rain is finished, not when the teacher calls him. And he tells the doctor, I do not want the others to see that I have fear. And then there is another case of a 50-year-old lady. I don't know who the author is. I can't find it. It's been published on a congress in French-speaking Belgium from the CLS, and I haven't found out who the author is. But it's a 50-year-old lady who suffers with the consequence of a flu vaccination. And the point of injection on her shoulder just extends along the arm like toothache, and the pains are worse when she's cold. But the site is better with a cold application. So that's a typical modality of the medicine. So worse from cold, but better from local cold applications. And also with motion, which is better. And the pain is persistent for a few months, regardless of many treatments prescribed by the rheumatologist. When the episodes of pain come, she's sensitive to noise. It's worse in the night. She gets irritated, agitated, and desperate from the pain. And she gets also flashes of heat with it, and she gets tears running from the right eye with the pains. And she explained the reason why she had the flu vaccination, because she had the year before she'd gone to Nepal on a visit, on a journey for herself, and she also thought about bringing along toys and presents for the children she might meet there. You know, she said to the doctor, they never had seen such things there. And on returning from this journey, she developed pneumonia, which took about 2 months to get better. So she had decided to have a flu jab this year to stop getting pneumonia, with the consequence that happened. And Ferrum did resolve 100% better the next year. So the reasons for selecting the Ferrum, this is a repertorization I made based on what was in the text. So I don't know whether that's the exact repertorization, but as far as I can gather, he put in stomach thirst during flushes of heat. He used extremities, pain, shoulders extending to hands, and eye lacrimation with pains in other parts of the body. Now, Ferrum Phos comes in the first two, and then Ferrum is in the two bottom medicines. And the prescriber explains this altruistic thoughts before going on holiday, that she has the idea of bringing these toys to the children when she goes on holiday for herself, made him decide to prescribe Ferrum phosphoricum and not Ferrum. That's his explanation. So she gets 1 dose in a 9C, and she's 100% better the next day. And she rings up the doctor, I want to take some more of this medicine. And the doctor told her, in no circumstances you can have some more of the medicine, you can only take 1 dose. And then she gets really cross and she hangs up, which is also part of this medicine. So these are the cases I can present to you, which I found in my own cases. Maybe any of you has cases who want to add on, because it'd be interesting if you add on your experience of cases of Ferrum phosphoricum at this moment. So anybody who wants to jump in, quite happy, because it will add to the ambience, it will add to the coloration of what I'm doing on the moment. Or any questions about the cases? And it's fine if you're all quiet. I got plenty more stuff to go to anyway, so that's fine. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the exercise of Sushism. So what does that mean, basically? Sushism comes from the word souche in French, and the souche is basically the word for the origin of the substance of the homeopathic medicine. So we could call it substancism, but I don't think it's pronounceable that easily. So Sushism actually is quite a good word. So again, thank you, Peter. So when you want to study a medicine based on this principle, which Marc Brunson proposed, what you do is you get all the cases together you can find by whoever they were produced, human, veterinary, whatever. You're going to look in all the data you can find about the substance. So the strange, bizarre, and curious, what's peculiar about this substance? What does this substance mean in the society of today? What is it used for? You try and look at everything you can find about the substance itself. And obviously, then you look in the Materia Medica, in the repertory. And again, you're going to do the exercise to find in these 3 areas. So that's your 3 basis of research, where you're going to find a dynamic that runs in these 3 areas of information, and particularly what's strange and bizarre in these 3 areas of information that links them together, that ties these areas together. So that's the principle of Sushism. That's how you're going to study your remedy. So I think what's really important, and that's why I keep talking about this, is it's a standardized way of studying homeopathic medicines. We can all do this, and we should all do this. It's really important. It's standardized. I'm going to tell you at the end why, how I see Ferrum phosphoricum, you can understand how I got there, and you can look into this. Actually, he interpreted this, I think, wrongly. I think I would do slightly this, but it's based on information we can share and understand from each other. So that's why I found this really important. So now we're going to, so we've done the cases. Now I'm going to do the bit of the souche in French, or the substance, so the element. If you want to find something about Ferrum phosphoricum on the internet, you have to use iron phosphate, because if you type in Ferrum phosphoricum, you only get stuff about homeopathy and the Sushism salts. And this is a text I copied from resource about the Sushism salts, and it explains how phosphorus supplies the sustenance to bone and muscle health, while iron aids with the exchange of oxygen. Its activity is related to blood circulation and oxygen. It's indicated in the first stage of inflammation. I think you probably all know that. You've all read this. That's nothing new to you. It promotes the absorption. So Ferrum phosphoricum promotes the absorption of oxygen by cells. It's the explanation in the biochemistry we know, and that's how the Sushism cells they function. So Ferrum phosphoricum has achieved a reputation as an effective medicine for fever with few specific symptoms, and is situated somewhere between aconite and gelsemia. Now, if you then look for iron phosphate, you can find that in the industry, iron phosphate is used as a cheap, low technical way of protecting things made out of iron, zinc, and manganese. So what they do, they take phosphoric acid and paint it over in a thin layer, and then the reaction with the metal underneath creates a coating, which is iron phosphate in the case of iron. And that coating is a very good anti-rust substance, and it's used a lot for the army, for firearms, and it's called parkerizing. It's also used, that same principle is all used in paints, because that reaction, phosphoric acid is a very irregular substance which has a very irregular surface which promotes adhesion. Now, the really interesting bits about iron phosphate is a historical bit, and you've got the picture here for this pillar of Delhi. It's 1,600 years old. It's made out of iron. It should have been rusted away 20 or million times over. It shouldn't be there anymore. And it stands there. It's been there for a long time. It's actually been moved, but it's been around for that long. And its covering is iron, phosphorus, and OH. So that it's an iron phosphate covering, which stops it rusting. Basically, it's resistant to time. And obviously, it was a pillar which was put up as a victory in battle. And you find a lot of information on the internet about it, and some people say how clever the metallurgists were at the time to create such a thing which has survived such a long time. There's actually a few other monuments in India that has survived such a long time, and the reasons probably is that the metal ore they used didn't contain much sulfur, but contained much phosphorus. So was this skill by the metallurgist, or just luck that they used that sort of type of metal ore for creating this pillar? I don't know. There is a text on this pillar who talks about the reason why this pillar has been dressed up. It's to remember a victory of somebody strong. I'll let you to read the text later. I'm sure you, Peter or Alison, you'll distribute this PowerPoint. I don't think it brings very much to the study of this substance there. But remember this pillar, which I think has an interesting meaning to understand this medicine. So we're going to the Materia Medica, and I've decided I will actually read out the Materia Medica, which is some summary by Margaret Tyler, which is in Homeopathic Drug Pictures, because it really gives you the essential few clinical bits which are worth remembering. And I'm going to read quickly through them, so I'll keep repeating stuff, so when the the day is over, you will never forget the Ferrum phosphoricum anymore, so I'll keep repeating things. So sows eat up their young, and we'll come back to this symptom later on because it's important. It's a transient mania depending upon hyperemia of the brain. So hyperemia of the brain, hyperemia or congestion is really important in Ferrum phosphoricum. All febrile disturbances and inflammations at their onset before exudation commences. Vertigo from congestion to part of the brain or the head. A frontal headache followed by relieved by nosebleeds. So there's a lot of bleeding in with all the symptoms in Ferrum phos. Congestion of the brain, early meningitis, top of the head sensitive to cold air, to noise, to jar, or to stooping. Perhaps a feeling of the head were pushed forward with the falling of danger. So the vertigo with the head pushed forwards. A severe headache with soreness, can't bear hair being touched. So Ferrum phosphoricum is really sensitive to noises, touch, and being interfered with. They have a red hot face and they vomit blood. Rush of blood to the head compared to belladonna and glonoin. The eyes are inflamed, red, burning, sore, and on stooping, he cannot see. That's also an interesting symptom, which we probably come back to a little bit later. And it's as if all the blood runs into the eyes. It's the first stage of otitis, with epistaxis, first stage of diphtheria. Toothache relieved by cold. Remember, cold applications, although that cold makes them worse. Blood in the discharges, epistaxis again, initially stage of inflammatory affections of the respiratory tract, pruritus, pneumonia, so the whole thing is congested, inflamed. Full pulse, less bounding than aconite, but not so flowing as gelsemium. Again, this situation between aconite and gelsemium somewhere. Rheumatism, it's actually probably really important medicine for joints, for the members. Well, you'll see that in a minute. So it's acute and it's attacking one joint after another. So it goes from one joint to another. The joints are puffy, a little bit red, and they're worse for motion. Phelons at the beginning of inflammation like belladonna, high fever, skin hot and dry. Can look very much like belladonna. Ferrum phosphoricum can be look as aggressive as belladonna. There's not necessarily a big difference between the two. There's copious sweat, which is not belladonna, and but doesn't relieve and drives the patient out of bed. All the febrile disturbances at their onset, especially before exudation commences. In many inflammatory and sometimes eruptive fevers, it seems to stand between the intensity of aconite and belladonna and the dullness of gelsemium. In anemia compared with China, of which it has many symptoms in common. And it's quite an important medicine of measles with conjunctivitis and photophobia. And it's very good in colds. I think in France it's typically the prescription of the initial fever with not many symptoms, so the initial congestive fever. And it's not been actually proven to Ferrum phosphoricum. It is the information in the Materia Medica is more from its use and from Schutzer salt and from practical use, a little bit like carcinosin actually. And it should, according to Marc Brunson, it should be useless in septic cases, so it's congestion before the sepsis. Now, this is an extraction from the complete repertory of the presence of Ferrum phosphoricum in the repertory. As you can see, it's most of its symptoms are in generalities, and as I said earlier, extremities is really important. So it's probably a medicine we should think about for all sort of lamenesses and joint pains and everything else. And then follows head and mind. Obviously, there's not a big mind department because there's not been really approving of Ferrum phosphoricum. Now, this is another extraction. And now it's an extraction relative to the representation of the size of the chapter. So each chapter has a number of symptoms, and then this is a representation of how many symptoms are has Ferrum phosphoricum relative to the total amount of symptoms in the chapter. In this case, blood, which is a chapter in the complete. It's not a chapter in synthesis or in radar. It's a chapter in the complete. So anything to do with blood congestion, blood vessels, and hemorrhage and everything is in there. And that's probably because ferrum phosphoricum bleeds everywhere. There's a lot of bleeding with all the symptoms. And then generalities, expectoration. So it's another way of seeing where ferrum phosphoricum sits in the repertoire. So what I've sort of concluded from these extractions is that really in ferrum phosphoricum, the whole body tends to be affected. It's not just one thing. They really completely affected when something's going wrong. And a quite strong presentation in blood. If you look at the symbolism of blood, which I looked up in a book on symbolism, it's blood is a symbolism of all the values relating to fire and warmth of life. And I think that's quite interesting because it's fire, which is strength, but also the warmth, which is nice, in relation with the sun and with an association to all that is beautiful, noble, generous, of high value. Blood is universally seen as the carrier of life. Life and its values are important to ferrum phosphoricum. I sort of concluded from this. Okay, this more extractions, more stuff about the substance. So I did an extraction of all the 3rd and the 4th degrees in the complete repertory and sort of looked through them and sort of tried to classify see what sort of themes tended to form themselves. And I also did an extraction of all the rubrics with 3rd or less medicines present in, so the small rubrics. And if I sort of put them in little groups together, there's quite a bit about anger and intolerance and annoyance. There is also quite a bit about mirth, liveliness, hilarity. So even when he has fever or heat, he's still quite lively. And also tranquility during febrile paroxysm, so tranquil, so peaceful, not worried, and loquacity. And then there's a 3rd line there about anxiety of the future, fear, death, sadness, aggravated from trifles. That's important. Little things will aggravate ferrum phosphoricum. They are sensitive a little bit like belladonna, and even aggravated by meditation. So they even get vertigo from meditation, which is quite interesting. And ferrum phosphoricum can be quite irresolute and indifferent to exciting events, and pain, loss of power from pain in the wrist. They can be impressionable, again, oversensitive to all external impressions. That's really important. They are very sensitive. They can't tolerate obstacles. Mental exertion aggravates the stomach. There's an unnatural excitement. It's worse from injury. In Beukelaer, there is indication to relieve the pain and bleeding after operations from the nose and throat. So it's an important medicine for injuries as well, injuries of the eye. So it's not just arnica. Ferrum phosphoricum could find its place there as well. And then further, you see lots of inflammations everywhere, lots of congestion, hyperemia, fullness, redness, epistaxis from everywhere. And in the joints, attacks one joint after another. It goes around. Cold applications are mel, but cold aggravates the general ailments from becoming cold, but better from cold applications. And this loss of sight when stooping, and in the French literature they point to that if ferrum phosphoricum stoops, which means he bows, he can't see anymore. So if he gives in, he can't see anymore. So that's how they interpret this particular rubric. It's a medicine which has quite a reputation for ear issues as well. So it's definitely in sort of classical, simple prescription. It has quite an importance for ear issues. And one could answer that could be related to the fact that they don't want to hear, they don't want to be interrupted by hearing what happens around them. They don't want people to interrupt what they want to do, what they're planning on doing. There is an intolerance in this medicine. So it's not a sensitivity in as such, it's an intolerance. I don't want to be stopped in my tracks. That's more what it is. And so because I had this sorry, and because I had this thing in my mind about these alternating symptoms from the past. I extracted everything to do with alternating, and we have these alternating states, alternating mental and emotional, excitable and sadness, unpleasant with pleasant. The moods are alternating, alternating states in the nose, epistaxis, alternating with spitting of blood, alternating states in the face, and redness, alternating with paleness. Now, what I found interesting in all these alternators, they're all visible to other people. And I think that might be important, because Ferrum phosphoricum doesn't want you to see actually how weak they are. They try to hide this up a bit, and that will become clear in the end. So I then extracted the dreams, and if you look at the dreams, he's anxious, he's going crazy, he's falling, he's frightful. There's many dreams, there's quarrel, strife. And then there's a dream, quarrel, strife, and then changing suddenly to happy conversation with another person. There's another alternation there, which didn't come up in the word alternating, which is quite interesting. And the dreams can be visits, and they can be frustrated after dreams and restless during their dreams. And with the dreams, I want to use this go back to this symptom in herring, which I gave earlier in the summary when we started with the Materia Medica, where there's a congestion and a delusion, and the patient thinks that the sow eats up their young during a transient mania, depending on the hyperemia of the brain. And so both the dream of this sudden change from quarrels to happy conversation, this is a big change, and this sow looking to eat its young have the same symbolism. There is an alternation there between an action of self-preservation. I want to quarrel, I look after myself, and the sow will eat their young, because otherwise the young will take everything away, where normally she should have a harmonious relationship with this young. Everything should be fine. So there is this struggle between these two in this medicine. So before we started this study, I said obviously you look at the cases you can find, you look at the Materia Medica, you look at what you can find about the substance, how it's used in our current society, what its meaning is for as a material, which we've done. But obviously, it's always good to see what other people say, which I did as well, of course. I went to have a look what AFADH looks at it. It's a study group in France who started with the work of Mazie taught these people, and they deliver some really interesting work. It's not always easy to understand. It's very, very deep, very philosophical, but it's quite interesting. And they started from in their study of the Ferrum phosphoricum. Usually they tend to find a really strange, bizarre symptom, which they think is quite important in the medicine, and that's where they start a discussion, and then they go to other symptoms and see whether they can bring it together. And they started from the symptom. He desired to get out of bed and wished to run around, but he was too weak that he fell over, very talkative and hilarious. So there is a contradiction there. Again, this contradiction of this medicine that comes up. So I've sort of summarized in a few phrases here what's in the text. And so Ferrum phosphoricum struggles between what he wants and what he can hear around him. His ears are affected. So what he can hear around him, there are obstacles for him. And if there are obstacles, they are in his way, and they stop him from achieving his first idea. So he wants to get out of bed, wants to run around, and was too weak that he fell over. And the discussion of this group finished by concluding that this can be illustrated in another way by saying that the medicine holds in its essence the determination of ferrum and the desire to communicate of phosphorus. The desire to communicate forces the patient to consider and reconsider things. And this is opposite to the initial determination of the purpose of ferrum. In ferrum, the first thought is supposed to be what happens. In phosphorus, there is a conversation, communication happen, and that there is a clash there. So hence you get these alternation of symptoms, these acute inflammations with congestions, and remember, the patients can be really, really sick with ferrum phosphoricum. The symptoms can be very fierce. There's a really big struggle going on. So I want to conclude here with, and then you can have a break in a minute. So it had a reputation as an anti-inflammatory, and it's used for this indication. It's likely that it's a medicine that can do much more by choosing the right patients. And I remember having the first time I prescribed this medicine, but I've lost the notes. I can't find them anymore. Was for little Terry, who suffered with really terrible chronic ear problems, and I couldn't come up with any ideas. There was nothing in the case apart from one thing. They kept saying he's so alert, he's so alert, he's so alert. So I just took mind alert and inflammation of ears. And none of the medicines that came up inspired me. So I prescribed 12C Ferrum phosphoricum, which I had in my drawer. And they twice in 3 years, they asked me to send another tube. And every time the ear problem came, they gave them Ferrum phos for a few days and the problem went away. So it's quite successful, but that's the only information I have about this case. So the themes to remember: alertness, it's an alert medicine. And also they can't tolerate many outside influence. So they alert, but when somebody talks, they don't like it. And it's not a sensitivity, it's an intolerance. It impinges in what they do. They don't want to be stopped in what they're doing. So being jarred, being touched, being something done to them. No, I don't want to do this. Remember this young Labrador, when we touched the face, she pulled back and the owner says, but she wants to play with you. See, that makes sense in this explanation, that suddenly this symptom, which was weird, the owner explaining weird, actually makes sense in this homeopathic medicine. So they have a mental strength, they're determined, but they also have a friendliness, they are sociable, they have a desire of a harmonious interaction, the desire of honesty. And there is a weakness with their illness, but they try to hide up their weakness. And so there is an alternation between this weakness, strength, friendliness, desire for harmony, interaction, and honesty. So that's the themes to remember. So I'm going to give you a coffee break. Oh, maybe there are some questions or things which aren't clear. We'll have a 10 minutes coffee break, and I'll come back to the previous slides and have another small slide of Ferrum, and then I'll do the rest of my presentation. So any questions, fire away. Oh, I have so much everybody's asleep.
Yeah, Edward, it's not so much a question, but some of you may be aware that I'm borrowing Tim Cousins' broadband here, and he's here watching and listening, and he has a couple of cases to mention.
Excellent.
That I think would be interested. So
yep.
we just do that before the coffee break.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Peter. Hi, everybody. This is from memory. I think a long time ago when I trained with George McLeod, I remember George using Ferrum phos for joint pain. So I've since then used it for young dogs with elbow dysplasia. So I kind of think you have a choice of 3 remedies that you might use. One is, of course, calc phos for that sort of lively, young, lean dog, lean puppy. You have the slightly sort of chubby, lazy puppies. That's going to be calc carb, of course. And then Ferrum phos is kind of, I would say, the stubborn puppy that won't do what it's told. So I've used that remedy for joint pain, elbow dysplasia, in fact, in young dogs, and it's helped. The other case that sticks out in my mind is an equine case from about maybe 10, 12 years ago, when I'd kind of finishing my day out, and a girl from the local stables runs down into the surgery and says, we've got this horse that's dying from peritonitis. And the normal vet's given it everything it can. Can you help? It's people that I knew, I'd done work for them before. So I went up, and they've got this very dull horse with a very tense abdomen. They've had fluid tapped off of it. It's seriously dying. Not a lot of symptoms other than the fact it was quite dull, depressed, but would then sort of come alert a bit. And I remember his temperature was wavering up and down. So rushed back to the surgery and quickly repertorized peritonitis. And I ended up giving it Ferrum phos, I think probably 30C, and Belladonna 1M, and they gave it the remedy every 15 minutes all through the night. It was a Friday night, and I expected on Monday morning there'd be a message saying the horse had died. Instead of that, there was a bottle of wine waiting for me, because the horse had survived completely and recovered totally. So that's my experiences with Ferrum phos.
Thank you.
Back to Pete now.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, and are there any other questions or comments? Ilse? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Edward, for a really interesting presentation. My experience with Ferrum Phos have often been with automilitaria, and I find it very useful for this. One was particularly interesting, it responded very well, and it was when there were some alternating symptoms, both in the mental dog, but also the PCVs that were cases, rather than showing a trend up or a trend down. They were jumping around quite a bit, so which was interesting. And the dog, rather than, and it was poorly at one time, it had a very low PCV at one time, and rather than being sort of collapsed most of the time, it alternated between being really lively, and she's saying it really wants to go for a walk, and it wants to go for a walk. It would go for a walk, but then it comes home and is you know, almost sort of comatose. And a lot of dogs with IMHA would be, you know, not wanting to go for a walk, and they would be, you know, very dull and lethargic all the time. But this one was, she said, it's almost like it was masking the symptoms because it didn't want to show them. And my question to you is, do you just use it as a constitutional, or do you use it as a tissue salt at all?
I do neither. I take the symptoms, see the case, and prescribe what I seems the best possible medicine. So I don't use tissue salts per se. And I never use the word constitution in my head when I prescribe. I prescribe what's the most appropriate remedy depending on the information I have and the case I have at the time. That's how I prescribe. So I can't answer that question, I'm afraid. That's how I work. So we could call, I'm sure, I think for the first and the second and the third case, they were probably constitution cases. The Rottweiler, I think it was a very good medicine for that dog, but it wasn't this, I don't think it was this profound constitution, if we want to turn around that word. That's how I would interpret it.
Right. Shall we start, Edward?
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to go back 2 seconds to Ferrum phosphoricum and then
yeah,
roll on with the rest. So just for me that it's easier to remember. So that's just to make sure it's all imprinted in your brains.
yeah.
At least you take something away. So this alertness and this intolerance to being stopped, these outside influences that stop them because they have this mental strength, they determined. And they also have a sense of friendliness, so sociable, harmonious interaction, honesty. And the weakness with illness, they probably try to hide this alternation between all these different themes. That was a coffee break, and then that's the last slide on Ferrum phosphoricum. Opposing themes, opposing directions of these themes, tough and kind with the family, dreams, fears of weakness. It puts up a brave face, he hides his weakness. And what I found, if you would try and study Scholten, Ferrum phosphoricum according to Scholten's principle, I make a simplification here. Normally the Ferrum would decide on the states where they are, where they're stuck, and then the phosphoricum would explain how they manage the stuckness. I think in this medicine, I don't think that applies. It's really a 50-50 expression, and there is this clash. There is this clash between these two different parts of the medicine. And with the weakness in the physical signs. So it's the contradiction between the strength and the determination, and on the other side, the weakness and the need for harmony, and they alternate and they stand up for each other. So I think the pillar of Delhi, this pillar of Delhi I found, who stands on his own, has resisted, he's a symbol of victory, but there's only a small layer that protects the very vulnerable, strong metal inside. It's sort of a way of remembering the medicine. And was the making of the pillar skill or luck? Most people say it was skill, but if I read between the lines of what you can find about it, it might have been luck. So there we are. That's for this medicine. So a bit more on Sushism. This comes from, I don't know how many people are familiar with the work of Mazzi, which is a Argentinian homeopath, which have quite a reputation, a very hard worker. And he tended to promote the study of the Materia Medica through the filter of the Sum of Thomas Aquinas. Now, Thomas Aquinas is a theologian who produced the study of man by combining the Bible and the work of Aristotle. It's a really, really interesting work of people interested in that sort of things. Very, very big, a big work. And it is basically a study of the relation of the man to God, God being the creator, ideal man, of course. And what they try to do is what is it in the patient that he envies in relation to the possibilities God has, the perception of the patient of a particular weakness that causes the patient's hardship. That's how they try to do this study. And they try to find the central theme, the central particular stress between the patient and the possibilities, this perfect situation of God. And they do this mainly, or initially they did this mainly by studying the mind part of Materia Medica and by looking at particular symptoms. This reference to gods and the specific filter used for studies did not suit well with Marc Brunson in Belgium, where I went to school. I still use, when I do the work on the Materia Medica, my translations, I always give you a few sentences of the AFADH information. These people use this technique to actually study the medicine. So what does Marc Brunson come to? He says, in theory, you should be able to present a medicine as a triangle. Okay, so and this is just a classification of all the symptoms of the Materia Medica. At the top, you have the symptoms which are particularly specific to that dynamic. What makes this homeopathic medicine is specific, different from every other one. They all sit at the top. Oh, my mouse has disappeared. No, they sit at the top here. And at the bottom you have the common symptoms which you find everywhere. So if you put a number of different medicines together illustrated that way, you see all these, a lot of these symptoms, they common to all these different medicines. But then at the top you have these symptoms who are really specific so to this medicine. So he proposed to make a classification like that with the high specific symptoms, only a few, and then the common symptoms, of which there are many, which it shares with other medicines, which each remedy shares with other ones. So if we then talk what means the degree in the repertorization in relation to this, well, the degree in the repertorization is the degree of reliability of belonging to the Materia Medica. How often has this symptom being related to this particular homeopathic medicine? And the more often there is a relation being shown, the higher the degree. So it's a degree of reliability of belonging to the Materia Medica. And Marc Brunson has brought in there a degree of specificity. So this is a degree of level in the triangle. So the higher the medicine can be, the symptom can be classified in the triangle here, the higher the specificity of that symptom in relation to that particular homeopathic medicine is. So and they're not necessarily the same. My mouse is gone again. So they're not necessarily the same. You can have symptoms with a degree who sit right at the bottom and symptoms with a 1 degree, so sorry, a 3 degree or 4 degree right at the bottom, or with a 1 degree right at the top, or the other way around. So it is something we have to get used to, the idea, the degree of reliability of belonging to, so the degree of the repertoire in the repertory, or the degree of specificity, the degree of the level of specificity of a particular symptom in relation to the essence or the dynamic of the medicine. So so in his Sushism, he wants you to use these 3 areas to build a picture that brings a number of symptoms right to the top, who then become really important to represent that medicine, who sit at the top of the triangle and have a high degree of specificity. So hopefully that's clear to understand. And what's the value of Sushism? It's as I said, it's a standardized method for studying each homeopathic medicine. And even though there's more ways to select techniques, there's much progress with Scholten, Sankaran, everybody else. I think it's still really important to continue to study each individual medicine in its own right, And this is not just something we have to do for the students. This is for everybody, for all of us. And the thing is, everybody can do this. Everybody can participate in this. You don't have to be a genius to do this work. You can do that all by yourself or a little group. And and it's a really interesting exercise to do this, because firstly, you will learn a lot for yourself, and secondly, then you can present it or publish it, and it will help other people. And because everybody understands how you've come about your idea, other people can add and change and improve to it. So the rare, bizarre, and curious principle is applied in this all the time, which is such a homeopathic thing, and it has a sound tree basis to work on. So this is really something that the teachers should force their students to do. Take a small medicine. So if you want to do this, take a small medicine. Don't do this with pulsatilla, because it will take you 3 years to do this. But you might have a small remedy which, oh, I've seen a case of this. Let's do this study, and it's really interesting. And you might be the first one, and maybe your idea is not perfect, but it's a start, and somebody else can build on that. So you must all do this, and because I'm going to come back to comments by Jack Imbrechts, who passed away, but he was a really important homeopath in Europe, and he wrote in an introduction in a little Belgian French-speaking book on homeopathy that it is really important that we homeopaths, we don't just take from homeopathy to work with it. We also have to give to homeopathy. We have to add to our knowledge, and this is a really way how you all can do this in a way that everybody else will understand what you do. So I think it's really important to take this idea that you can do this and that you must do this, because you also have to give back to homeopathy, and this is a way of doing it. So, and then I want to move on to homeopathy today and tomorrow, how I see it. So this is my idea, how I feel, and I'm going to put it very strong just to get the message along, because it might be a bit sharp on the edges, but it's just to get us to think about this. So the way I see homeopathy is a bit like a specialism. So, and that's how I'm going to approach this next two pages. So we do a specialism, obviously, because we want to improve our practice. It's normal. Everybody does this. Even people who do conventional medicine and want to do better surgery, whatever, they want to improve practice. They want to do more. So that's a normal thing. We are lucky. We found homeopathy. We increased our tool back tremendously, or possibility of treatment tremendously. So we're very lucky. And then, but right at the beginning, when I started to learn homeopathy, I suddenly had this dichotomy: homeopathy, modern medicine. How I can deal with this? Because if I'm now going to give a conventional medicine to a dog, I'm going to cause a suppression. I'm going to make this dog worse. And how can I do this? That was a real struggle I had from the beginning. But I've come to terms with that over time. I can wear two hats because the thing is, I'm practicing medicine. We're practicing medicine to the best of our ability. And there is our knowledge, there is our possibilities. And in the beginning, I wasn't very good at homeopathy. I'm only slowly making progress now. There are the possibilities of the client. Does the client understand what we want to do? Can the client go along with it? So that will determine, as I explained in the poppy case, the client wanted an anti-inflammatory, they wanted a painkiller at that time, but they get the painkiller. I'm not going to argue with them and saying this is not good for your dog and everything. I have to offer a service as well. I'm not when I'm practicing homeopathy, I'm not writing a book on the perfect homeopath. I'm practicing medicine, and that's how we have to look at this. Because that comes also to the point of client compliance, which is one of these things that really raises my hair when I hear my my conventional colleagues say, "Oh, the client didn't comply with the prescription I made." I think if you prescribe a medicine for patients and the client doesn't give that or apply that prescription the way you intend, though, I always ask myself, did I do the right thing in this case? Even though everybody might agree that I've made the right prescription, all my colleagues agree that I made the right prescription. If the client doesn't apply it, if the client is not compliant with my prescription, I might have made the wrong prescription for that particular case. So for me, that relation with the client is really important. And I think our pure approach to homeopathy sometimes can be bent, and we can only do the best we can. So that's how I look at what I do. And so the thing is, so I come to the point, I'll never consider myself as a homeopath. I'm just a veterinary surgeon who also uses homeopathy and try to do it as best as he can, because I'm using homeopathy because I'm for homeopathy, not because I'm against conventional medicine. So, and that is the viewpoint I come to in the last 10 years. I think that's how I work. That's how my life has become easier, and that's how I made a lot of progress in homeopathy and in the local practice. I'll talk about that in a minute again. And so at the bottom, I say we're specialists. We have a duty of CPD, what we're doing today, but also the feeding our specialty. As I said before, we have to give back to homeopathy, either by publishing cases or by doing this sort of studies. So we're not homeopaths now anymore. We're just practicing medicine, and we have a specialty, and we just have to become really good at this. I'm unlucky. I don't have a good brain. I don't remember very much. I have to use my techniques, and I can't always very quickly come up with and I might lack in confidence sometimes. So I still have some conventional medicine on the side in case I need it. That's how I work, and I don't dwell at all on obstacles to cure. For me, the main thing for me is the homeopath. My knowledge, how good am I, is for me the main obstacle to cure. And if a dog had or cat had medicines, conventional medicine, a client who doesn't understand or gets a bad diet or whatever, I still have to be good enough to actually help these patients as well as I can. I don't have to cure everything purely. I have to do my best. And that's why I almost ask myself the question, should we run an alternative medicine practice? Should we not have just a multidisciplinary practice? And that's even when you're practicing only homeopathy, that's fine. You're still a multidisciplinary practice, because you'll see, oh, actually this case needs surgery, I'll send it to the surgeon. This case needs physio, I send it to the physiotherapist. You're still practicing multidisciplinary medicine. And multidisciplinary medicine, that's something I've started using a few weeks ago, thanks to David Beukelaer. I have to credit David Beukelaer for this, because he talked about this really strong, and he's right. We shouldn't be alternative medicine. We shouldn't be not even integrative medicine. We have to talk about multidisciplinary medicine, because what we do is equally good as the surgeon does, is equally good as the diagnostician does, as the radiographer does. We all are the same. The people does a physio, we all stand on the same line, and we should work together. And that is the future for me of homeopathy, is multidisciplinary medicine. And that's the name of the title of the resource we are creating for the International Veterinary Student Association. So we started a project to help the veterinary students learn about alternative medicine, and the title of this project is Multidisciplinary Medicine. So I refer to my choice with homeopathic practice. I decided to start working in a pure conventional practice. There was no homeopathy, nothing, no alternative stuff at all. And I've gradually, bit by bit, by getting my clients to trust me with conventional medicine, and then bringing in homeopathy bit by bit, taking them along. And now bit by bit, you can see the clients are getting used to this. They're getting people who don't know what homeopathy is. They're not interested in homeopathy. They only want to get their animals better. And now they refer other people. So you can do this. And I don't call myself a homeopath. I'm just a veterinary surgeon using what I can, because the treatment choice is always related for me to what's the patient, who's the client, and who's the vet. And I've come actually to the point that there is even an individuality in what's the best technique for each patient, even for the same illness. I'm pretty convinced that some patients are fantastic for all their life on steroids, And that's just what works for them, you know, that's fine. I have no problem with that. The dog is happy, the owner is happy, the dog has a good life. Okay, I can't publish this case in a homeopathic magazine, but that's fine, you know, as long as everybody's happy. And I have no problems with telling people that I've treated an animal that way, because there were no problems. I don't need to see the patient. It's always fine. There's nothing to see there that's a problem. But that is because for this particular patient, that's the best solution, and that's the individuality I conceive in medicine nowadays as well. So that's the message I wanted to give, my way of looking at medicine, and the message I wanted to pass on, because I think that's how we can move forward and really fit into medicine as it is on the moment, because we're not going to change medicine and get homeopathy to take over. We have to fit in there, and we have to just become part of them and have a language that they can understand, they can work with, and we don't need to tell them, oh, you've done this and this, so I can't do homeopathy. That's not how I see it. If the patients come full of apocril to me, it's not a problem. I'll treat it, it's fine. And when I do really good, your apocril will go away. That's how I see it anyway. So why did I finish with this bit on homeopathy, my view? Because in relation to Ferrum phosphoricum, because I want to finish with this. We need the communication of phosphorus and the strength of the work ethic of Ferrum to prepare homeopathy for the future. That's my opinion anyway. And I hope we shall not need to use Ferrum phosphoricum to hide any weaknesses and inner conflicts we have. We have to become really, really good at what we do, regardless of all the difficulties, all the obstacles we may well see, and just be confident with our limits, with what we can do, and also our limits, in such a way that there's nothing to hide. So that's the message I want to leave you with. And that comes to the end of the presentation. And I've chosen this view of the pillar, which is the different ones which I used before. And you could almost see the pillar is homeopathy. It stands there and it's fine. And behind is conventional medicine. It has some beautiful sides, but it's falling apart. That's sort of the positive view I want to see, and the bricks will fall apart, but the pillar will still be there. So I'm very positive and optimistic about homeopathy, as long as we get that positive outlook that we can talk to our conventional killers, we can work with them. It's not a problem. We have to have that attitude, even though they don't give us back, but that's fine. We strong will stand there. Their thing is crumbling. There we are, questions and answers.
Thank you, Edward. Any questions or comments?
Maybe there might be people that I'm quite happy for people to disagree with me, because I've pushed this really, really hard just to just the purpose is not that I think I'm completely right. The purpose is to make us think about this. How do we do this? Is this right? Is this a way forward? Can we do this? Is this correct? And obviously there is a battle there, and that's the whole Ferrum phosphoricum thing. Oh, we got to do homeopathy. Our Hahnemann told us to. We have to do this. We can't do this any other way. And yes, if we can, if that works in that particular situation, that practice, we must do this because it's fantastic. But then there is the reality where this clash, and it's this clash we have to work with, and that's sort of the message I wanted to leave today.
I have a question for Edward. Yeah. Do you take Ferrum phosphoricum, Edward?
No. But I have nothing to hide.
It's interesting though, because sometimes when you use something quite a bit, or it's something that you need to think about yourself, but I'm not saying that you should. I'm just thinking about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you're very gentle, and yet you're very determined.
Yeah.
Okay, that's mine. Thanks.
I pretend I have nothing to hide.
I'd just like to say that one of the reasons I was so happy when Edward accepted the invitation to talk is that I know well his views on homeopathy, and sometimes he stirs people up with them, and some people don't agree. And it's surprising me sometimes how strongly they disagree. and I personally, I subscribe to Edward's general view that we're veterinary surgeons that practice homeopathy, and that's always been the faculty's view. And we don't prescribe what form homeopathy should be. Certainly, our hope is that when you've done an accredited course and gone through examination system to become a member of the faculty, that you have several ways that you can use homeopathy. And homeopathy is arnica for a road accident, and then through to the what we might call constitution, the constitutional approach, looking at the whole patient. And it goes further than that. And I'm interested to see Edward's view of the veterinary profession, the veterinary homeopathic profession. That Ferrum phos, these remedies, Ferrum phos goes under the name of the label of a small remedy, and certainly for me, I've used it very little, almost always just as a pharyngitis or a fever remedy. Once or twice apart, a little bit further than that, but to me it's a small remedy. And yet when you look at it and you get other people sharing their experiences, it becomes a big remedy, and it becomes a remedy that whose pattern we can extend out into the bigger picture of our profession generally. And that to me is one of the fascinations of homeopathy. So just picking up on the chat here, one or two comments to say, yes, can we have more of this kind of webinar with single remedies? Certainly, I'm very grateful to Edward. This has been a wonderful start to the program, and we intend to continue with various forms of CPD. I like Edward's.
If people want a single, anybody can propose a medicine, and a group comes together and start working on it that way. You can work together and just collect information. Everybody collects information, brings the information together. It can go on in a Google document, and you can easily, at a distance, do this sort of study. And it's not something you can do in a weekend. You have to do little bits and pieces, walk away from it, come back to it, walk away to it. Because I probably spent several months doing this, because you have to come to it and go back and come to it, and you can set a group of 4 or 5 people and come up with medicine nobody knows about, and actually present something really interesting.
Yeah, I did have a question actually, which is when you're prescribing, which Materia Medicas do you tend to look at to match?
Yeah, I tend to use the thematic Materia Medica in French mostly.
Right.
All the people who have done the remedy studies. So I don't use the sort of classical Materia Medicas very much. I base myself quite a lot on all the studies who have been done, and I've got quite a few. But I have also recently started using Vaccaire, and I use the plant Materia Medica of Schultz sometimes. Yeah, anything new that comes out in Materia Medica, I use everything, but not very much of the old ones. I found them really difficult. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, great. Are there any more questions? Everybody's satisfied. So we've obviously we're feeding our speciality. Thank you, Edward.
We have to.
So thank you also to Ali for facilitating this. Thanks once again to Ainsworth's for sponsorship. Thank you to all of you making this possible. I'm very grateful to you making it possible so I can learn as well. And I recognize that people have come from all over the world, or joined in from all over the world, including Australia and parts of Europe, different parts of Europe. So I'm very grateful to you all participating. Our next event will be on May the 22nd, which I'm also greatly looking forward to, which is Petra Waimea. describing, talking about the work that she's done, a paper that's being published on homeopathy and veterinary homeopathy, which basically concludes that homeopathy is evidence-based. So it's a major piece of work. It's only been published in German. So apart from one small session that Petra's done earlier, this is the first major presentation in English of this work, and I'm hugely looking forward to that. So hopefully you'll join us for that. And I think that's all I need to say. Once again, thank you to Edward and our sponsors, and I wish you well, and I hope to see you in May the 22nd.